Hey everyone.
Hey guys. I'm gonna
How's
wait
it
just to, I'm
going?
gonna have that play for a little bit longer, let some people join in.
Perfect. Brendan, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Also, I see you're in your home office, which I know quite well.
I know. I need to
You
get
play
out
the
more.
play the piano for us or the
I need
guitar.
you to come over and jam with me, man. No
Let's
one
go.
plays music anymore. It's funny. I'm like you and I are like the only soul guitar pianists, except for Emily. I guess she's a singer. So
That's
you know,
my
it's like
piano right there.
There we go.
that's awesome.
I'm not a musician, so I don't fit in this group. I was a dancer. Does that count? Y'all can play music and I'll dance.
I love it. That's perfect. Hey, by the way, a fun little story before we get into it while we're letting other people get in. Brendan, like he's like the most creative person I've ever met in my life. And so like when we get together, we love like, playing music, joke, all that stuff. Well, he's actually started using AI recently to like produce and create music. And so I think you actually have either a YouTube or Spotify where you've
Yeah,
like created
both.
some of your, so do you want to do a little shout out on some of your fun
Oh,
music?
I could, sure. So the name of the artist is called Ordinary Liturgies. It's the idea of a liturgy is kind of a ritual in worship, and so it's like, hey, every day, just throughout life. But yeah, it's been fun taking a lot of my songwriting and things that I have collected over the years and trying to put them to music and kind of wordsmith them a bit to sound good. And the AI tools are actually really incredible for that.
I know.
So
It's crazy, like anyway,
it's
well,
fun.
so we don't go on a tangent, but it's crazy what you can do with AI and music these days in creating some like cool stuff. So go check
It's
out
fun.
Brendan's fun music on
Looking it
YouTube.
up now.
Get some likes going on that.
Oh gosh. Well, honestly, it really kind of started because my kids, we sing songs, make up stories before bed, and we were making up silly songs, so I'd record them, and that's how I got into started making AI music with it. Is like we just put them to music, and they all have these little music players, and they wanted it on Spotify, so that's how I started doing that. Was I just started uploading it so that my kids could play the songs we made, and I mean they're what you would expect, songs about um, poops and all sorts of
Yeah,
anything that a 10-year-old boy is going to think is funny.
Star Wars.
Yeah,
Just
so it just kind of
10-year-old
turned into
boys
a
or
fun.
even like 30 and 40-year-old boys, because I feel
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's hilarious.
all right,
Well,
well,
Leslie, you
yeah,
feel like we've got
let's go ahead and get started. So hey everyone. Welcome. I'm Leslie, the customer success lead here at Strike, and I'm joined today by Emily, our growth coordinator. And today we're really glad that you're here for the co-host advantage and how to own a profitable SRT without running it yourself. Today we're going to tackle some big questions, and we've got Matt Sanderson, the CEO of Strike, as well as Brendan Thompson, the CEO of how do you say it? Oikos?
Oikos.
Oikos. Okay. And they're gonna show us how to build a profitable STR without it taking over your life. So I'll let them jump in and start sharing all of their nuggets.
Awesome. Well, hey, so excited to be with y'all today. Special treat with Brendan Thompson. I mean, all of y'all for sure. But Brendan, just a fun little story. He was a prior co-founder of Strike. And so when it comes to co-hosting and someone knowing what they're doing, especially from a data-driven perspective, I don't know if there's anyone better out there than this guy that knows how to co-host, because he literally helped create what we're talking about today from a data perspective. So Brendan, such a treat to have you on.
That's I'll correct the record later. That's very generous. It's an honor to be here.
Man, it's fun seeing you. It's been fun to even see your story, because you've gone from no short terminals, just I don't know, a few years ago, to like managing like 30 to 40 or 50 of these things now. So I mean, it's pretty incredible. So well, hey, I'll go ahead and kick us off with a fun story, and then I'll let Brendan kind of take over on the co-hosting perspective of what we're going to be talking about today. So This is my father-in-law, Rod Overfield. And he has a lake house on Conroe. And this has been such a fun thing for us to be able to go up there with family. And can y'all see my mouse as I'm like even looking over at like some of these things? So like, we go out there on the lake with the kids, the grandkids. He's like fishing with our daughter and our son, and we go out on the boat. Like, it's like so awesome. Well, he's getting married this next month, and he's moving to a different house. And he approached me and he said, Matt, like, oh man, I don't know what I want to do, because I don't really want to sell my house. I want to keep it. But man, I'm spending, expenses every month. And, as much as I love this thing, I just don't want it to be a drain, expense wise. And I said, hey, have you ever thought about turning this thing into an Airbnb? And he goes, well, first of all, Matt, I've never done that. I don't know the first thing about running an Airbnb. And plus, I don't know if I want people, in my own house, running my place. I said, Rod, hey, let me tell you what, let me just show you why you should reconsider this. And so here's what I showed him. I jumped on Strike. Again, we're a data-driven platform to help you understand your revenue potential and profitability of your short-term rental. I said, hey man, if you could actually put in a little bit of design, I mean, you're already on the lake with the pool. I mean, the most gorgeous views you could ever imagine on Conroe. If you go and put this thing on Airbnb as a 3-bedroom, I mean, you could probably make like $80,000 per year on this thing without even really trying, because your Airbnb is already set up like perfectly. But if you were to turn this thing into a 5-bedroom, put some extra beds in there, put, a trundle bed, and like convert some of these rooms, maybe even convert the garage to like a game room and some of these things, man, you might could like double that and make almost like $160,000 in revenue for this property that you have a 2.7% interest rate, or maybe even lower. You're only spending like $2,000 a month in expenses. You might can make like $5,000 a month or more in net cash flow in this thing. And this might be your retirement plan. And so when I told him that, he's like, his eyes kind of perked up. He's like, that actually sounds pretty good. And I said, and that's not even the best part. That's a really good part. But the best part is this: by just simply putting your property on as an active short-term rental and you hitting these material participation hours, you could unlock $86,000 or more in tax write-offs. So now you not only have a retirement plan, but now you get $86,000 extra back in your pocket to either go travel more or go buy short-term rentals, whatever you want to do. And so I tell you guys all that as we get into this. There is enormous potential for you guys, whether you have a short-term rental or you want to get your first one, to just simply buy one and begin operating it. Worst case scenario, it's a break-even property potentially, but you get to unlock these massive tax savings. So this is something I just really want to like hone in on, that this is what a lot of people don't realize, that I didn't realize, at least for the first couple of years of doing it, that the tax write-offs are enormous value, where you could drive 20 to 30% like instant return by just putting it on as an active short-term rental. And this is critically important, because Brendan will get to this in a minute. There's very specific IRS regulations that will unlock this. And if you don't do it right, then you may not be able to unlock this. So again, today we're talking about the Cohost Advantage, talking about running and owning a profitable STR without running it yourself. And so Brendan, would love to pass it over to you so you could tell us a little bit more of how these people can own these things but not necessarily run them.
Yeah, and let me know when I need to connect to your father-in-law. Sounds like he could use a co-host.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, I want to start with maybe just a little background. So like we were joking in the beginning, I actually didn't have short-term rentals until about 3 years ago. And so this world was relatively new to me. I started with Strike, doing some underwriting and seeing, holy cow, people are making massive cash flow on these properties. How do I get started in this? And just really fell in love with the art of hospitality, with the operational side of management, and really felt a calling to that. And so the name of our company is Oikos. It's a little bit hard to say. I realize that now. I could have picked a better name, but It's the Greek word for home. And there's a Bible reason for it, but it also just felt like, it was a cool kind of sounding name. But here's my goal today. My goal as we walk through this information is I'm not here to sell anyone on getting a co-host. In fact, I actually want to do the opposite. I want to help people discern whether they actually need one or not. And so we're going to navigate some of these things. In the short-term rental world, there's really a few ways you can approach it, right? You can do self-management, which is what a lot of hosts are doing. You can do property management, professional property management, which we'll talk about as well. And then there's this really narrow path that is emerging called co-hosting. And so I think there's a lot of confusion in terms of like what a co-host is versus what a property manager is. I think self-management's rather obvious, but we're going to talk through all three of these and what the difference is. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. We're going to talk through a few other things in terms of how to help scale your operation. So timing, like when might be a good time to hire a co-host versus should you self-manage? We're going to define those models a lot more. And when we get to the Q&A, we can start asking some questions around red flags, green flags for good co-hosts. How do they actually drive performance? We can talk case studies about kind of performance we've been able to drive, where you can really leak revenue if you're not careful. We can talk about all that in the Q&A. But I think before we define the models, I'd like to just let's walk through history a bit, okay? So here's the secret is that short-term rentals have actually been around for quite a long time. Airbnb is not the first, and VRBO is around before that. And even before that, you had these property managers. And I have a slide that's up here in a bit. Here it is. Back in the day, property managers really controlled the market, and they had this giant moat around their business. And that moat was first and foremost marketing. And then there were these technical limitations. So technically, as an amateur host, you could have self-hosted your vacation rental on the beach in Galveston, Texas. You could have self-managed that. You could list it on VRBO. The demand was a little bit soft, let's say, and it was maybe a little inconsistent, but there was demand there. You could do that. You didn't have a lot of tools, so you really had to know what you were doing operationally to perform. You also had traditional property managers that not only did they have local area expertise and they had the operations built in, but they had this huge moat of marketing. So there used to be a day, some of you will remember this, where if you wanted to rent a beach house, you'd go to an office, you'd pick up a key, they'd tell you how to get to that property, and you'd go drive over there. And that's how people booked properties. You have to call on the phone. Well, here's what happened is this revolutionary website and platform called Airbnb came, and it flipped the game upside down. And property managers hated it because now they're not just the technical limitation for people to book was taken away, and the marketing distribution, the moat that they had went away as well. Because why would I go to some office and call some property manager when I could just get on the internet and find a home as well? And so Airbnb really changed the game for people in short-term rentals. And it was even more frustrating for property managers because in order to compete, they have to put their properties on Airbnb. And now they're losing 15% or 18% that they weren't losing before. And they're having to pay that to Airbnb to get the same bookings just because that's where the demand is going. So Airbnb really democratized the experience of being able to host a property. And if you guys recall, there was a long season for Airbnb where people were really forgiving. You could have a mattress in a spare room and you'd get glowing 5-star reviews about how awesome you were as a host because the expectations just weren't there. Well, as the Airbnb phenomenon kept going, people started to say, hey, well, this is pretty cool. What if I had an entire house that I put on Airbnb? You started to see people at an amateur level enter into the Airbnb market, start buying properties. And before you know it, they had portfolios. They had multiple houses that they're running on Airbnb. And alongside that, all the tooling that was not available at first began to professionalize. The industry began to professionalize. And so this is where we are, this critical junction of where we are today, is you have essentially people that are able to get their properties distributed and listed anywhere. You can get bookings, that's not a problem. But we've now arrived in a place where guests, unfortunately, expect a whole lot more. They're expecting this professional experience that they maybe would have got with a traditional property management company or with a major hotel chain. So now we're in this weird space where we have these operators that they saw passive cash flows easy, or it was just easy to do. But now they have these portfolios and they don't know. They're like, I didn't sign up to become a property manager and I've got 8 properties. What do I do with that? I don't want to pay a property manager 25% because I can get the bookings myself. I just need somebody to do messaging and I just need somebody to do this, that, or the other. And that is where the co-host phenomenon has emerged. Co-hosts essentially look very similar to property managers, but there's a few distinctions of co-hosting that is a little bit different, but on the surface, they'll look the same. And so in today's day and age, there's really 3 options for you. You can self-host, you can find a professional property management company, or you can look for a co-host, which is, what I do, but there is a role for all 3 of these to play. And so my hope is that after watching this, you'll understand a little bit more of what you actually need, whether you actually need professional property management, co-hosting, or if you could self-host. So that's where we are today. I mentioned that co-hosting does actually look very similar to property management. Operationally, you're going to see a lot of similarities. So on the surface level, you'll see them coordinating cleanings. You'll see a co-host and a property manager for your vacation rental, doing inspections on the property, winterizing the property, communicating with the guest as needed, stocking supplies. You'll see them doing these things. But there are some really important distinctions. So legal contracts are a regulated thing for most real estate, for most states. In fact, the only reason I'm not saying all states is because I actually don't know, but I would bet that it's all states. Property managers have real estate licenses, and that's because what they're doing is a licensed real estate activity. So a co-host legally is really not able to do a legal contract with a long-term tenant. Those are promulgated forms that you find on your local real estate commission. You have to be certified and you have to be a proper real estate professional to do that. Additionally, finance and payments. So most property managers will take your money from the guest in trust. They'll hold it and they'll do trust accounting and they'll report that back to you in a compliant way. And there's some really specific financial components to trust accounting. Co-hosts don't do that, or at least they shouldn't. Many of you, if you have a co-host right now, you might have a co-host that might be breaking out a little bit. And so I'm not gonna call anyone out here, but technically that is you're not supposed to do that. So it does happen from time to time. I understand that, but by and large, a co-host cannot take money on your behalf. And so most co-hosts are billing back for their services. You're keeping all the money in your account, and you're doing your own bookkeeping. And you're doing all that on your own. I think critically, the last thing I want to mention is that Matt had mentioned that for many people, buying a short-term rental for them is an opportunity to access the short-term tax loophole. And for that, you do need to have material participation in the property. When you hire a property management company, one of the clear things that happens is that you can no longer access that material participation because it's being professionally managed by a property manager. With a co-host, however, you can. Certainly, if you're self-managing, you're going to get that material participation, no problem. But with the right co-hosting solution, you absolutely can access. That for your tax purposes. So, as I mentioned, there's some observational differences with the legal forms and some of the collecting of the finances. There's also some other things that you need to consider for co-hosts as well. Property managers usually carry a lot of liability insurance. A lot of times they have in-house teams that do some of their maintenance, their repairs, their cleaning, and they generate a little bit of hidden profit by marking those up. So they might pay their cleaning staff hourly, and it might take their cleaning staff 2.5 hours to clean your condo, but they're charging you $80 and they're arbitraging the difference there. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. That actually makes a lot of sense. They've got other hidden costs that they have to take care of, and they're simplifying their business model. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that you're paying for a lot of things that you might not know if you're not careful. Many times maintenance and other things like that come at a markup. with a property management company as well. That's fairly common. And that's not to suggest that co-hosts don't do that, because I do know co-hosts that do mark up certain things. But in general, that is something you might expect on a property manager, but maybe not from the right co-host. So just to sum it up, kind of definitionally, for a co-host, you don't really, a co-host like myself, I don't need a real estate license because I'm not doing trust accounting. I'm trying to help you as an owner pass the material participation test, while offloading some of the heavier burdens of guest communication and some of the operational complexity for you. And then generally speaking, most property managers carry insurance, while most co-hosts don't carry insurance. Now, I have like E&O and things like that to cover myself, but it doesn't necessarily extend to your property. And as I mentioned, for many co-hosts, they don't arbitrage the services that they provide you. Some of them do. Property management, that's fairly standard. And for a self-host, you pay what you pay because you're in control of those finances. So here's what I want to do next is we defined a little bit about what is the difference between property management and co-hosting. I kind of want to bust a secret here and kind of like break open something for you, because as I said, my goal isn't to sell anyone on a service. I actually think for a lot of you, you don't need a co-host. And here's why I say that is there's a fallacy that thinks that there's some kind of trade secret in the short-term rental management world that I have these, like, I've divined from the spirits some kind of secret that you don't have access to. And the truth, it just couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is that there aren't really any secrets. Most components of hosting a property can be systematized, modularized, and executed remotely. In fact, I manage all my properties remotely. I don't have a single property that's within 30 minutes of my house. These same tools that I use are available to you. They're available to anyone. There's a lot of people, I think, that consider a co-host because they lack the confidence to self-manage, but they really would like to self-manage. And so I would say before you surrender any kind of cash flow revenue or any equity, if you gave away equity for a co-hosting arrangement, before you do something like that, I would recommend diagnosing what your actual pain point is. So if you've considered co-hosting, don't hire a co-host if you just lack the confidence. I have a different solution for you for that. And it's not going to be hire me as a co-host. It's going to be, let's help get you confident in the tools and systems that you need to do this well. But when might you want to co-host? There's probably other, but there's three that I like to talk about. And the first is the time valuer. So you're somebody that has, you don't have a lot of margin to deal with kind of that additional stress and effort. This doesn't necessarily have to mean you don't have the time. It might mean that your personal time is just worth more to you. And you're glad to pay somebody a fee for outsourcing that time and effort. And this is really out of convenience. And in fact, I would say this is probably should be the primary driver for hiring a co-host. You could probably set up an AI stack and a technology stack that will support your property and give you limited effort. But if you're just wanting to pay the convenience of not having to deal with it, when it's barking, you gotta feed the dog. So that's kind of how it is in the short-term rental world. If you don't want that, maybe it's time to hire a co-host. It's not because you couldn't do it. It's not something you lack. It's just time, and you're putting a value on your time. I would say for me, just a little bonus here, I also have the ability to, I get access to tools that, because I'm operating at scale, that maybe smaller operators don't have access to, or they have to pay more for those tools. And so one of the other benefits is that the quality of your service might increase when you hire a co-host, just simply because they have access to tools that you're not using, and they're bundled into their management rate or their co-hosting rate. So you're just going to get a better quality service, use better tools that you don't have to pay for now. And it's going to, make your time, you're going to be stress-free. And then for me as a co-host, I'm able to do things at probably a tenth of the effort that it would require you. So that's the first person, I'd say the time valuer. The second person would be the portfolio builder. So let's say you've got 1, 2, 3 properties, maybe you have 10, but if you're actively acquiring properties, you don't want the ops to become your day job, because what's going to happen is that's going to eat you alive and eat all your time. At some point, if you're building a portfolio, you're going to need to hire an ops person anyways. So my recommendation is, if that's where you are, whether it's your first, second, third, 10th property, maybe having a trusted co-host is somebody, it would be a solution that helps you, so that you can focus on the things that actually are going to build equity in your business and in your portfolio. And at some point, you're going to outsource that effort anyways to a co-host or to a property management. So why not start now? Especially early on, you'll kind of get dialed into the right solution for you, and it'll give you some time to evaluate your co-host you're working with to see, do I like working with this person? Is this a good relationship? Is it a good fit for where I am? Because I will say, every property and every owner, you need to evaluate the right co-hosting solution for you. I don't think it's a one size fits all solution. So I'd say portfolio builders, maybe it's time for a co-host. And then I think the third one, this one's a little bit harder for some of you to recognize in yourself, because it might hurt the pride a bit, but I call it the stress gap. So I actually wrote an article on this, that there's a lot of just operational stress. There's something called techno stress. There's other components of this that go into it, of like always being on. I know hosts that they've come to us begging us to help them, because anytime they get a message from a guest, it spikes their blood sugar, or it spikes their blood pressure rather. And if you're wired that way, it might be worth it, just for your peace of mind and mental health, to have somebody to just be the stress sponge for you. And I would say that would be a really high value to bring in a co-host for you, if it's just so stressful. For me, I'm usually pretty cool as a cucumber for those types of things. Water heater goes out, no problem. We'll solve it, deal with the guests. They're yelling at me. I mean, I didn't break the water heater, so I don't really feel like culpable or responsible over that, but I do want to make sure they have a great experience. I want to help them out. There's some people that kind of just interaction is very, very stressful for them. And if that's you, maybe a co-host is a great way to put a little buffer. I've actually had to tell some of my owners, delete Airbnb, because I see you seeing the messages, and I know your blood pressure still spikes whenever you see those messages come through, even though you're not doing anything. You're just transferring the kind of stress that I don't know if it's making it any better. So I legitimately tell them they should delete the app and just let me do it. They can check in when they need to, but yeah, I'd say that's a person that would need a co-host as well. I don't know if that's landing, but when do you not hire a co-host? We talked about this already, that a co-host is maybe not the right solution if you lack confidence, right? We can fix that with some tooling and some education and some training and help. I would also say, if you are looking for a co-host because there's maybe specific things, there is probably a way we can help you fix that without having to hire a co-host. So let's say you're overwhelmed by inquiries, for example. Well, there's guest messaging services you can hire. Maybe you could hire a VA. I don't know if that makes sense for where your business is. There's AI solutions for that I use and implement in our business. There's you need a better pricing strategy. Maybe you're trying to drive bookings. Well, there's solutions for that are going to be better than having a co-host. Maybe it's just operational baseline stuff, like, hey, how do I just get my stuff organized for cleaning? There are tools out there for you. So don't hire a co-host if you're just trying to solve a very specific niche problem. Let's right fit the solution to the problem. And then this isn't on my slides. This is just for free. I would say don't hire a co-host if your expectation is that all the problems on the property go away. The reality is that I'm here as a co-host to solve the problems that arise. I'm not here to, I can prevent some problems, but I can't prevent them all. If you have a property, at some point, you're going to encounter an issue. People are people, so your cleaner is going to mess up, whether I manage them or whether you manage them. You're gonna have cleaning issues. You're gonna have issues with bad guests that damage the property or just rude and hard to deal with. They might leave a review that's 4-star review and saying thanks, great stay, bed uncomfortable. There's things that we can fix and things that we can't. But I think many times people come at co-hosting as though I have a really hard time managing the property. Maybe it's not actually you in the management. Maybe it's actually there are things on the property that just need to be addressed. So expecting a co-host to be able to come in and fix those things is going to be a recipe for disappointment, because they just I'll give you an example. To protect the guilty, I won't say names or locations, but imagine there were a property that you got there and there are hardly any sheets in the cleaning closet. All of the games are broken. Not some of the games, all of the games. And this is a property that features outdoor games. The fence is dilapidated. What do you think somebody's going to experience when they get there? They're going to be disappointed, because this property doesn't live up to what I saw in the photos that were from 4 years ago. Well, that's not something that I can fix without cooperation from a property owner. So I'm glad to address that, buying new games, getting that staged, getting the fence fixed. I'm glad to do those things. But me simply being a co-host isn't going to fix what's broken on that property. So, okay, my soapbox is over there. So just to kind of sum this up, do you need a co-host? What would be the benefit to you? Well, I'd say identify that primary friction that you actually have. Is it confidence, but you have time? Well, you should self-manage. Let's get you in a co-pilot service where we can come alongside you, help you optimize your business to work for you on your time. That's the best solution. Struggle with specific things. Let's look for a modular solution to that problem. You want to protect your time and stress, and you want time to find more properties. Well, maybe a professional co-host is for you. If you need total liability protection, you want the trust accounting, regardless of the tax implications of that, maybe a traditional property manager is going to fit your needs better as well. Personally, I think you could probably get just as much performance out of a co-host, but in some situations, maybe it makes sense.
I love it, man. Hey, so, sorry.
What was that, Matt? You're on mute, brother.
Oh, am I? Leslie, can you hear me?
Are you not?
I think you might not be able to hear me. Are you there?
I can hear you.
Let's see if I can hear you. Oh, I can't hear you, Matt.
Oh, weird. Okay.
I can hear you.
Well, I'll keep going. Just follow my lips as we go. But Leslie, you're good.
Maybe you can be my translator.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, well, what I want to do before we get into Q&A is I want to follow back up to Rod's story. And the reason for it is because we heard about, his situation, the opportunity that was there from a revenue standpoint and a tax standpoint. But there's still one thing missing from that story, and that's the actual execution of it. There's all this opportunity, but it's like, okay, well, now what? Well, you think about him, and I don't know if many of you all will relate or not, but he's a baby boomer. He was in the military, a fighter pilot, like hunting submarines. Like, he's a sharp guy and an incredible man. But when it comes to short-term rentals, he'd never done that before. And so despite knowing the opportunity and the excitement for wanting to do this, like Brendan, mentioned, he was scared. Like, he didn't know what he didn't know. And so he almost let that hold him back from doing it, just because he didn't know the right things, the right systems, how to place it on Airbnb, how to host, how to find a cleaner, how to do all these things that are really a business. You're operating a business. And so what I did is I said, Rod, hey, I'm not a co-host really, but like, hey, I'm your son-in-law. I want to see you succeed. I'm going to come alongside you, and I'm going to help you get this thing rocking and rolling. I'll be your guide with you. And it was just enough to get him the confidence he needed to say, all right, let's do this thing, to convert that into a fifth bedroom so he could drive that revenue, to get that tax write-off. And so I'm basically acting like what Brendan was talking about as that co-host for Rod, so that he can get up and running, get that listing going. And then, at some point in the future, like Brendan said, he's not trying to sell anything. It's just whatever you guys need. And so Rod in particular, he just needed someone to just accelerate him through the journey, just be that guide on the front end where I'm just helping him get his, system set up. And then he's probably going to take over guest communication and systems and all that stuff. Or I'm probably going to connect him with Brendan and say, hey, Rod, if it's going to stress you out hearing about a broken toilet and, whatever about a cleaner, hey, this is where this co-hosting service really could come in to help, if you just want your time back and not really have to deal with the stress and the headache. But at the end of the day, at least you're now making money with the retirement plan and you got those awesome tax write-offs. And then now you can choose if you want to choose your own journey of doing it on your own, or if you'd rather have a co-host like Brendan coming in. So that's the full wrap on the story. And again, it all depends on your situation. But the cool thing is that you really have three options. And the second option Brendan talked about, co-hosting, is one that many people forget about. That is a cheaper option than full property management, way more flexible, and it allows you to really optimize for the best situation for your particular story. So let me go to the Q&A. I think Brendan had to jump off because his mic or his headphones weren't allowing him to hear me. So we'll open it up for Q&A. Throw your comments in the chat, and would love to hear any questions you have for me or Brendan from a data or co-hosting perspective. Wait, Brendan, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
There you go. I just
you and I are very close. I knew exactly what you were saying without even being able to.
Yeah, you can read my lips. So anyway, so there it is. So that's why co-hosting is important. And so now we're going to do some Q&A. And if Leslie, Emily, if y'all don't mind checking the chat, see what questions we have, we can start answering any of that.
Hey, while those are coming in, I'd like to maybe make another comment about material participation, because I think I've received questions about that in the past. I do think it's important that a lot of co-hosts don't actually know about the STR tax loophole. And so you may have to inform your co-host about that. But one easy way to do it, one way that we do it on our side, is we just track hours for cleaning and for maintenance work that's on the property. Like, we have that itemized so that you can have that for your material participation test. Now, our cleaners don't always do the best job of closing out the reports, and sometimes I get a 70-hour clean that I have to go, hey, what happened here? But in general, it's pretty good to help. So just thought I'd comment on that.
Yeah, just another comment on that, because tax reasons are huge reasons why people are looking into this. Now, the two differences between co-hosting and property management, again, just to get to like the granular, I've seen some people buy a property towards the end of the year, manage it on their own till the end of the year, and then just flip it to a property manager on those. That's one way you could, get around it. Talk to your tax advisor for sure. Or you could bring on a co-host like Brendan whenever, if that's the choice you do, but you do have to hit these material participation hours, which is 100 hours of material participation and more than any other anyone else, right? So anyway, that's why it's really good to have a guy like Brendan come alongside that guide, because there's a lot of nuances and details regarding the tax code that you need someone to really understand that, so that you can do it right. Same thing in partnership. Like, if you ever do a partnership, the language that you have in your operating agreement is very, very important to unlock that. So don't rush through that. Make sure you do it right. And, guys like Brendan are a good resource to talk to.
Yeah, that's good.
We've got a question here from Dan Rivers. Shout out. What are the best questions to ask to qualify a host?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, there's some easy ones, I think. This is baseline stuff. How do they track cleaning and maintenance? Very easy. What I'm finding is that I get some property owners coming to me, and their former co-host didn't actually take the time to, and it's not hard to do this, to get cleaning reports, photos, videos of cleaning or maintenance work that happens. I think that is a huge risk if you don't have that going on, because if you're a property owner, you've probably already experienced this. Somebody walks in, they say the property's not clean, or you have a damage claim that you have to file on a guest because they stained something, they broke something. And if your cleaning staff is not taking good photos, now, arguably you could say that's more on the cleaner, but your co-host needs to be involved in that process. I would additionally ask them, a good question would be to ask them what their hidden fees are, or if there are any markups, because as we talked about earlier, there are some co-hosts that do mark them up, and you'll at the very least want to know what those costs are. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's wrong. You'll at least want to understand that from their perspective. I would absolutely ask them about revenue management. And if they don't know what that means, I would say maybe go explore some other options. Now, they don't have to be an expert at revenue management. We have a great friend and partner with Synergy Stays. Shout out to them because they are awesome.
They're awesome.
And it's not that I think that they actually do have some industry secrets because they're really good at what they do. But it's not that I couldn't do revenue management for every property, because I have been doing that. It's a lot of effort and it's a lot of time. And so your co-host, I would ask them what their strategy is on the revenue management side. How are they going to drive occupancy? How are they going to manage rates? A lot of you guys as property owners probably are thinking about your property incorrectly, where you're thinking like, oh, I need to make X amount of dollars per night. And that's just not the way that we need to think about it. We need to think about how much revenue can I generate. A lot of the revenue management is about probabilities and about looking at your booking window and seeing kind of what you think we can get each night. So I would certainly ask them about how they handle that. And then the final piece that I would ask to look for to qualify maybe a good co-host from like a great co-host would be, what's the rebooking strategy? What's the comeback strategy for getting people to come back? As we all know, Airbnb likes to take an arm and a leg out of every booking. VRBO does the same. So does Booking.com and all the other ones. So what is their I guess stance or position and operational strategy to getting you direct bookings? It takes time, and if your property is just like a 3-bedroom condo in somewhere and just kind of more on a commodity level, it's not maybe a super property or something stand out, that may be a little bit harder to drive direct bookings that don't just come from repeat bookings later. But I would ask some of those questions.
Hey, one thing I want to say, I want to pause on this for a second before we go to the next question. As we look at these numbers here, I think what's important is that just finding a property is one piece of the pie, but it's how you actually operate it and optimize it to actually achieve what you're trying to go for from a revenue standpoint. Again, because if you just go buy a property and if you throw it on the market, you're probably going to be this 50th percentile, which is average percentile, knowing, oh my gosh, there's way more potential, like way more potential if you know how to operate it well, if you know the revenue management piece, if you know the strategic design and the amenities piece of it. And so, we're able to understand the full unlocked potential, knowing that every property has a range of revenue, but it's, do you have the right team in place to actually execute to go hit that? And so that's why revenue management, co-hosting, whoever's handling that management of that property, like, it is critical that they understand, first of all, what can you actually hit from a data perspective, then put in the right team and the right, plans to go actually execute on that. So I just want to make that very clear, because a lot of people, I think Airbnb investing is just like, I'm going to go invest in real estate and this property is just going to make this much money because every property has one number to it. Well, no, it's Airbnb investing is you're basically running a business. And if you run a business, you need to operate it efficiently. There's ways to save you lots of time, which, co-hosting is one of those things, but it's, every property, if you forget nothing else, every property has a range of potential, and it's, hey, how do you actually hit that? And it's critically important that your property manager or co-host or whoever's helping knows how to hit those upper tiers. So I just wanted to pause on that before we keep going on Q&A.
Yeah, that's really good.
What else we got?
I see here costs between co-hosts, how to cost compare between co-host and full property management. That's a great question. In general, property management is the most expensive option. You're talking certainly not lower than 20%, oftentimes even up to 45. I've even seen 50% for properties. Co-hosting generally comes down between somewhere between 10 and 20. So we're not the cheapest option, but we're also not the most expensive. And I think you really need to ask some questions about what you're getting in there, because there are solutions out there that just do guest messaging, for example, and they'll take 10%. So if you're going to pay 10% and somebody's willing to do more than guest messaging, well, that's probably a better trade. But they can range anywhere between 10 to 20% depending on the property. For us, we like I said, we're not on the lowest end, and then we try to tailor it to the property too. Some properties I have to charge more just simply because I have costs associated with the business, and if it's a property that's maybe not going to generate a lot of revenue, let's say, I have to kind of offset that. But that's probably not a problem for anybody on this call or watching this video. This is unique to how we started working with missionaries who they launch overseas for their mission work, and we take on their property. And usually it's not like a $2 million golf house in Sedona. It's a 2-bedroom, very modest home in a suburb. And so we're trying to do everything we can to maximize the impact we can make. But at some point we just have costs that we have to take on. So,
but I think that's a good thing to just compare and contrast. Like, you're exactly right. A lot of property managers, and there's some good ones and there's some horrible ones out there, can range, again, between 20 to 35% usually is what I see. But I have seen some 40+%. Where co-hosting, I've seen somewhere between that 10 and 20%, depending on the services provided. So that's a massive difference if you're trying to get some pretty good cash flow going, and if you want kind of a tag team helper, or you want to participate some or none at all, just depending on your situation. But I think the other main thing I want to mention before we go to the next question is, when you put your property on with the property manager, they put it on with their platform. And so if you ever get reviews and you get traction and you ever finally gain the confidence to take it over, you lose all of that listing. You lose all the reviews, you lose all your traction, and you have to start over from scratch. That is, I know I said if you forget anything else earlier, this might be one of the biggest things you hear. Like, it is so hard to get reviews and traction, and it takes time to do it. And if you have a property with like 15, 20 reviews and a lot of good traction, and you're ready to switch, but now that listing's with a full property manager, that it takes a while to start that. So that's a good thing about co-hosting is, Brendan.
And I will say not every co-host does it this way. Some co-hosts build the listing for you. We will take your preference. My preference is to put the listings in your name so that you can migrate your portfolio if you ever find a different solution. Now, the reason I do that is because I believe that we do a good job, and I kind of want to put I'm going to put myself at risk a bit to say, if I don't do a good job, you can fire me and keep your profile and everything's all set up. But I do think that's maybe an important question also to ask is, how do we do the listings? Are they in my account, or are you drafting them in your account? It's a little bit of a protection thing for most co-hosts and PMs, is because they want to keep the listing, because they know that for you starting over would be scary. I actually just take it the opposite way. It's like, hey, I'm going to start at risk. I'm going to put everything in your name, and I better do a good job. Mm-hmm. Because if I don't have that buffer in between.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Any other questions y'all see, Emily, Leslie?
There's one. Do you specialize in certain markets for your co-hosting?
Yeah, and I see one above that about co-hosting. So there's two parts to this question I would answer is, personally, I'll manage anywhere. internationally, even we've had some international properties in our portfolio as well. There's some nuances that you have to think through, but if you think about it, a lot of people, they're concerned with a remote property co-host is that, what do I do if there's a plumbing leak? Well, I'll just tell you, I'm not fixing it anyways. I'm hiring a plumber. So it's not like if I were next door, I'd be able to fix the plumbing. And there are co-hosts that do that offer the ability to go and take care of that stuff. That's tricky to me. I would rather have somebody that I can hire and fire and give feedback to for my own kind of, sanity, but also just for a little bit of a buffer zone there. So personally, I'll manage anywhere for anyone as long as it makes sense to support their business. If you're thinking that you might need a local co-host, I would just want to peel away the layers a bit and go, hey, what's the concern that you have with a remote co-host? And in the end, if you are more comfortable with somebody in that local market, then I think you should probably go with somebody in that local market for your peace of mind. It's don't let somebody convince you to do something you don't want to do or you don't feel comfortable doing with it.
Yeah. All right. I think we have time for maybe one final question. Anything else on the chat that we should be answering?
So the last one is from Terry Frazier. I'm not sure if he's on here, but he sent this in an email to me. How do I share Strike with co-host on my properties so that we can share analytics and manage these properties? So it's a Strike question.
Okay, more of a Strike question. Okay, so yeah, so if you want to check out Strike, STRiq.com, or you can reach out to support@STRiq.com. If there's certain things that you've got more specific questions on, we've got basically a subscription membership service to our data analytics. So that, that one pager I showed, that the range of potential, that's something from something called our comps dashboard. So you could basically type in, your co-host, you could type in literally any address in the country, put in 4 bedrooms, 4 bath, and it'll spit out the full range of potential revenue for that particular property. It'll show you the most important amenities you need to be thinking about having for that property to hit that upper portion. And it'll show you your entire comp set that you can filter from highest to lowest so that your co-host knows, hey, if I want to hit this top portion of revenue that Strike is projecting, basically just go copy what all these top performers are doing or do better than them. And that's the secret sauce of knowing how to do it. So Brendan, he uses Strike and Price Labs quite a bit.
I was actually just gonna love bomb Strike for a bit because I use it. I mean, obviously I was an early part of it, so I have an affinity to it. But I use it every day, and any new property that I bring on, it's the first stop for us. It's like, let's look at your property, let's look at the comp set, let's use the dashboard here. And what I want owners to see is, for me, it's level setting. So what is your expectation on your property? And then helping them to see the differences. Hey, your property, it might be here in this 50th percentile. What do you see that's different about these top tier performers? And what I love about the dashboard is it has pictures. It's got estimated, annual revenue, and it's got everything that I need to paint the picture of what they might have to do to get their property into top performance. Because I'm incentivized to do that, because if their property operates at a top level, I actually make more money that way. And I like those properties more. They're more fun. Guests have a better time. They're just more enjoyable.
And one thing I will say that I think is helpful when you pair data and a guide together, like the GPS and the guide together, it's way better informed strategic decisions. So like, instead of just being like, I feel like you should put in string lights, or I feel like you should put in a fire pit. It's, hey, based on these comps, I see that these top performers here that are making double or triple than what some of these other people are doing, they have a movie theater, they have string lights, they've got twilight photos, they've got lifestyle, and you're able to give very specific, tangible, data-backed points for the co-host or the owner to make these decisions to then go implement. So anyway, that's why I think the comps dashboard or the data paired with the co-host is a very powerful and dangerous weapon, because it's a clear line of sight to, hey, I know exactly what I can make, and here's exactly how we can do it, and here's the team to go implement it. Cool. So I think we've got just a few minutes left. We're going to wrap up. Just a quick little teaser. So it's fun because Brendan, again, was a part of creating the 1.0 version of Strike.
It's so much cooler now.
It took 4 years to build Strike 1.0, and it took like 60 days to build 2.0, which we're launching May 1st. We've taken a lot of learning lessons, and we've basically taken all your guys' feedback as customers or prospects to tell us what you guys want. And so we are launching Strike 2.0 May 1st of this year. So about 30 days from now, it's going to be awesome. And it's, hey, if you're ready to go find that next profitable property, it basically replaces Zillow, AirDNA, and spreadsheets, and just reveals the most profitable deals throughout the country. So that's really fun. That's coming up 30 days. And so an offering we've got, we have this founding member special, which is essentially 67% off for life. And so if you guys want to jump in, you're ready to do this, we've got 100 spots. That's going to expire on April 10th. And here's the link to it, strike.com, striq.com/join. And that'll give you some more information on it. And Brendan, I think you've got an offer as well.
Yeah, we are making an offer right now. If you wanted to onboard with us as a co-hosting client, we're doing a flat fee, $500. We handle everything. So we do all the setup optimization, get your property live, get bookings, booking velocity. We get all that up to speed. Really, the only reason that I'm charging anything at all, I'm not saying I'm going to do it completely free, is I actually have costs and people that I have to pay on my team to do some of the work. If it weren't for that, it'd be $0. I'm so confident in what we're able to do for our property owners that, yeah, it's trying to just do it at cost for you. So
awesome. So Brendan, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yep. You go over to oikospropertyventures.com. You can set up a call with us, or you can email me directly at Brendan, BRENDAN, at oikospropertyventures.com. Easiest way. Let's start a conversation. No form to fill out. Just shoot me an email and say, hey, heard the webinar. Let's talk.
Awesome. Hey, Brendan, before we jump off, if you don't mind in the chat, just like throwing that in there so people can click your link. Real easy.
It's not.
Or if not, then we could throw it out on the chat either with Leslie or
Emily
if possible. And then Emily,
I'll also send out an email just to recap all of this too, with the link and all of the offers and everything together.
Even better. I love it. So that's all I got. Leslie, Emily, anything else from y'all before we wrap this up? Awesome. Well, hey, Brendan,
awesome.
Thank you for coming on, man. This was a blast. So helpful. And hopefully this is one of many more that we get to do together, man.
Let's go.
So
thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Thank y'all for joining. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.